even if you know that you want to be an attorney and this is a lifelong goal, it's not going to be detrimental to you to still take time off and to still go work and do something else, because all of that is just going to help, I think, make law school a little easier. Now you have a depth of knowledge that you can't get except to grow up and spend that time just living your life.
This is Courtroom Stories and Tactics by RVA Trial Lawyers, hosted by Sharif Gray and Niall Abuzaki.
All right, before we get into the episode, I want to take a minute and introduce you guys to a friend and colleague, Sally Tierney. Sally works as a professional investigator based in Northern Virginia, but handles cases all over. I've had the privilege of working a case with her not too long ago. Sally, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about what you guys do?
Thank you, Sharif. So Clear Path Forward is the firm, and we do investigations for attorneys for criminal, personal injury, civil, by doing an extremely thorough investigation on every single case, and we add value for the attorney.
Thanks, Sally. And for people who want to reach you, how can they get a hold of you?
They can call us at Clear Path Forward 703-350-2073. That's 703-350-2073.
All right, we're back. And today we have a guest host, Nathan Hittle. Welcome.
Thank you.
We've known each other for a little bit.
Just a little while.
Just a little while. No, Nathan is a colleague at our firm and has so kindly agreed to take the place of Judge Niall Abuzaki today.
That's right. Swapped Nathan for Niall.
I like it. And we also have the privilege of having our guest today, Portia Koptish. So changed names not too terribly long ago, right?
No, April got married.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, congratulations. I'm sorry to all our listeners who were hoping they still had a shot, but I guess no longer.
No longer.
Nope,
off the market.
So Portia and I met through, no surprise to our listeners, this thing called LinkedIn, and it was a few years ago now.
Yeah, before law school.
Before law school,
Yep.
right?
Well,
And
I just started, I believe.
I think that's right. And I remember seeing your background and I was like, oh my gosh, like you would be perfect for this work because your background is in healthcare. A lot of time spent, especially in nursing. And I forgot how, either I reached out to you or you reached out to me. I forgot how that all worked. But we met for coffee, if I remember correctly, it was at Stella's at Libby Grove.
Yep.
And then I was really excited about kind of your interest in the type of work that we do. And I think I tried to connect you with a few people, and I did, and we've stayed in touch. And now 2-3 years go by, you're graduating from law school here at the University of Richmond and going off and starting as a trial lawyer on the wrong side in a couple months, right?
Well, I don't know about the wrong side, A side.
A side. No, she's going to go represent medical professionals who have, she's going to defend them in medical malpractice suits. And I joke about the wrong side, but at the end of the day, you're dealing with people who are also going through the worst time of their life, right?
And we also joke that, I say I work for the good guys, so.
Understood.
Goes both
no.
ways.
Yeah, it goes both ways. But if you listen to this podcast, we kind of know which side you're on. So, the right side. So, anyways, before we get into it, why don't you take a minute or so and just introduce yourself?
Okay. So Portia Koptish, my new last name. And so I graduated from nursing school from UVA in 2006 and started working as a nurse at Martha Jefferson Hospital. Prior to that, actually, I was a paramedic, but being a paid paramedic also required you to be cross-trained in fire. And I had no interest in that. I was healthcare all the way. So I decided to transition to nursing. And I also have a daughter, and she was young at the time. So the 24-hour shifts for paramedics also just didn't make a lot of sense. So I continued to volunteer in that capacity, went to nursing school, taught CPR, first aid, that kind of thing. And then, I continued to work as a nurse for a while. And then I moved to Canada, and I didn't enjoy being a nurse in Canada. So I quit, and I opened a gym to try to keep people out of the hospital. And then COVID happened. And I went back to nursing and then law school. So here I am.
Here you are. So definitely not traditional. So Funny enough, so Nathan and I went to UVA for law school. Nathan, 2 years in advance of me, I believe. You were 2012, correct?
Yes.
I was 2014. And so you were 2006.
Yes. Yeah.
Awesome.
From nursing. Yeah.
Awesome. Very cool. So we've got something in common. Let's take you back then to COVID. What was it about COVID that gave you the inspiration, or maybe not the inspiration, but the motivation to say, you know what? I know I've been thinking about the law for a while, never actually pulled the trigger on it, but here I am. Let's do it.
Well, a few things. So I was in a different place in my life. My daughter was grown up and had moved out and was married. And so and I was single at the time, so I could basically do whatever I wanted, live wherever I wanted, go back to school if I chose. And I had originally thought about going to nurse practitioner school because that I thought would give me more autonomy. But really, after being a nurse during COVID, I just wasn't enjoying being a nurse anymore. Healthcare had really changed since I left, and I moved to Canada in 2009. And so I wasn't really sure what it was, whether there was some change that happened in healthcare or whether it was just specifically because of COVID that everything went so terribly sideways. But it was really difficult to work in nursing homes and see patients alone, confined to their rooms, not able to have visits from family. And then, also just the treatment of nurses too. I remember I was working in a field hospital, and it was right when the vaccine rolled out, and we were hesitant. We didn't really know. We'd been working in COVID the entire time, putting ourselves at risk. And when the vaccine rolled out, and then suddenly now, we've been risking our lives to help people, and then all of a sudden, you're getting fired because you don't want to get the vaccine. And I thought, always we've been able to choose what we want to do with our bodies. We should have the right to say, no, I'm not really comfortable with this, or I want more information, or, to me, what I learned in nursing school is that it's the patient's choice. It's their body. They can decide whether they want to have an intervention or not. And it's our job as healthcare providers to provide all of the options, the risks and benefits of all of the options. And then ultimately, the patient decides what they want to do. And I just felt like that was completely taken away. And I had so many patients say, like just as an example, a diabetic woman who was on dialysis, and she'd gone to the dialysis clinic, and she said one of the medications they were giving her it made her feel poorly. And so she wanted to use a different medication that she'd had at another dialysis clinic. But this particular clinic said, no, we're only, this is the only one that we can use. So if you don't want to use the medication, then you can't be our patient, basically. And I just thought, well, that's not really acceptable. That's not how we should be treating people and taking care of people. You should be able to dictate that to some extent. So anyway, that's how she ended up in my care, because she didn't go to her dialysis and she got very ill, and then she ended up in the hospital. So, things like that.
What was it like being a nurse during COVID? And I recognize it's somewhat of a broad and loaded question, but if you could go back in time and just help us understand, like, being in a hospital setting, right? Like, COVID's going on. People, you don't know what it is, or people are afraid, right?
Yeah.
What is that like?
Well, I was never in a proper hospital.
Okay.
So mainly I worked in nursing homes.
Got it.
And so I would be on a floor with, 25 to 30 patients by myself as the only nurse. I had assistants, medical assistants or nursing assistants, but it was just me and 25 people all had COVID. All of them had COVID. And then I worked in a field hospital, but that was separate from the main hospital. So we were just the overflow, if you will. So people would come to the field hospital because it was dedicated to COVID patients. So I was never really in the hospital setting, but I would just say that it was a very lonely experience, and it was it was just really sad. I had patients in the nursing home who didn't speak English. And so there were no translators. There was no way for me to communicate with them at all. And, I can go home at the end of the day. They're stuck there, weeks and weeks, months and months. Can't talk to family. It was very difficult to arrange. Everyone says, oh, well, you could just FaceTime. You could do this. You could do that. Well, that requires some, technology first, and then maybe some assistance to set it up, because remember, these are all elderly people. They didn't grow up using FaceTime and all of these things that we think are so easy, right? So, it was a very lonely and sad time. I'm glad it's over.
I remember at the time I was clerking for a federal judge in New Mexico, and I remember just waiting in line at the groceries. It was Trader Joe's.
Yep.
And the feelings of just the uncertainty, right? Like, I don't know how bad this thing is. I think my wife was expecting too, so that's
scary.
That was scary. But I think that's one level of scary. Like the idea, at least when I try and put myself in your shoes back then, of being in a place where you've got so many people who are looking at you as the authority, right? They're looking at you as what do we do, what do we don't do, and there's just so much information that just isn't known.
Right.
And then the helplessness that comes along with being in a facility like that and not having the same access to technology for a number of reasons that others do. It had to be crazy.
Yeah.
And what I'm hearing from you, and correct me if I'm wrong, is it sounds like that it was that experience that finally was like, you know what? I'm going to do something about it.
Yeah.
And here comes law school.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it should be better. We can do better, I think, even in times like that, And
I have a few doctor friends, and what I've heard from them is that the administrative wings of of hospitals, the insurance parts of medicine has really, I certainly, it's unfair to use broad strokes and say bad, but it has changed medicine and how medicine is practiced. And it's not fun. It's why a lot of people don't want to be doctors anymore. Mm-hmm. It's why your ER, actually the two people who I'm close with are both ER doctors, and why they tell me that ER doctors are looking for other things to do. Mm-hmm. The burnout's real.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, I met an American Airlines pilot who left medicine to be a pilot.
Yeah. It's real. And I've even noticed, kind of just in my own life, that there are, my physical therapist, I'm very good at getting hurt. It's a skill. Mm-hmm. I kickball.
That's what happens when you're an athlete.
Well, it's not even, it's funny because I do CrossFit and of course you get hurt. You do CrossFit. No, I don't get hurt at CrossFit. I get hurt playing kickball. Oh. I get hurt rounding.
With your boys?
No, adult competitive kickball, right? I take it very seriously, and I hope my team is listening to this. So same team in Richmond since 2021. So we have a good time. It's a lot of fun. But no, I have a weird, I wrestled in high school, college, and 4 knee surgeries, 1 shoulder surgery. I've been through it. But anyways, my physical therapist doesn't take insurance anymore.
Yeah.
Right? I've seen doctors who don't take insurance anymore because they just don't want those constraints.
Right.
And in some respects, it almost makes me think of the education system. The education system might even be getting there too, right?
Yeah.
The public school system, at times, I've heard, has gotten so overburdensome with regulation and administration that teachers don't want to do it anymore. It's why? I came here to help people. I came here to teach, to have the autonomy and the flexibility to make a difference. But when I spend 70% of my days doing administrative nonsense, I'm not in it for the long term. So anyways, I recognize I just went down this massive rabbit hole, but it's cool to see kind of how, or at least to hear how you saw what you believed to be a problem. And instead of saying, you know what, it is what it is, I'm just going to press on. Let's make a change and let's do something that is not traditional, right? You are not 22 right out of college.
No.
Right? You're 22 now, correct?
Right, exactly.
You've gone back.
Yeah, forever. But, I'm aging backwards.
Understood. Yeah, my wife's birthday the other day, and she didn't actually go up in years, which I thought was interesting. But that's a new thing, I think. So
I need to figure out what she's eating and get some of that because it's not working the same way for me.
Well,
years keep going up.
Nathan, I have learned that age is a mindset. So there are days.
It's also a diet.
That's fair. There are days where I think I'm like 72, 73 years old. And then there are days where I'm just a young lost child trying to find my way. And that's probably more so. But no, it's cool that you ultimately said, you know what, let's do something about this. Because at the end of the day, I mean, being a lawyer is you're an advocate. People have rights, right? Especially the right to choose like what's going to happen to my body. It's in the medical setting. And to make that decision and to go to law school and if I'll go ahead and I guess spoiler alert, like you've got an awesome job lined up here in a couple months.
Yeah, I sure do.
With again doing on the wrong side, but representing healthcare providers.
Yes.
So really coming full circle in many respects. And now instead of just being that nurse, you're going to be that nurse's advocate.
Right. Yeah. And the doctors too. I mean, I met many doctors that were not able to do what they wanted to do during COVID. Some of them got around it because, as you said, they were private doctors to people who could afford it. And I did a lot of in-home care for people who had COVID and they just wanted to do something different that wasn't permitted in a hospital setting for whatever reason. I don't know why that would be, but yeah. So everybody kind of was hamstrung a little bit. So
no, it's not. And I mean, with the work that we do, I mean, Nathan and I mean, we're dealing with, I mean, our work is tangential to the healthcare industry, right? And we don't have the same level of regulation, but I mean, we have a client right now who I think tomorrow he's scheduled for an MRI, and it certainly hasn't been easy to get that. And but it's important to him and it's important to his case. And so we are very, very well aware of the struggles. Sometimes it can result in just trying to get care. And there's also, I'll get off this stick in a little bit, because what I really want to get to is I want people to understand and appreciate like what it was like going into law school for you, going through law school. So, because a lot of our listeners are young listeners and we have people who want to go to law school, and if they can learn from you kind of what that was like and what are some things that maybe they should consider doing or thinking about when making their decision and going through law school. I really want to get to that. Okay. But before I do, I can't stop but continue to hammer the healthcare system. I mean, I have heard that the phrase more than once that it is not a healthcare system. It is a sick care system. And I believe there is actually a lot of, unfortunately, there's a lot of truth to that. Yep. It is not about nutrition, exercise, doing the fundamental things to ultimately encourage wellness and prevent sickness. It has become a reactive type of system.
100%.
And so I have learned now, unfortunately, that I guess fortunately, but relying on your 1 to 2 visits a year with your primary care physician and doing the standard blood panel is just woefully inadequate. And you have to take your health into your own hands.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Yeah, eating well, sleeping, exercising, doing all the things.
And do whatever they say on YouTube, right?
Well, I don't watch YouTube, so I'm not sure what they're saying.
Okay, all right. That's what I said too. Anyways, well, let's get into it.
Okay.
Talk about law school. What was it like for you? I mean, just preparing to even go to law school. Because we get this, I imagine, Nathan, you probably get this question a lot too. It's like, all right, well, I'm going to law school in the fall. What do I do? Like, what do I need to do to prepare? What was that like for you?
I felt that I needed to do something to prepare. Now, I went to the Admitted Students Day, and they encouraged us to just enjoy our summer and try not to get too into the weeds about preparing for law school. That would come soon enough. I didn't listen to that advice. I did an online program just to kind of review what I might be learning in my 1L classes, which to some extent was pretty useful. And I think if only just to be aware of some of the terminology and have a sort of very bird's eye view of what my next year was going to look like. I like to be prepared and know what I'm getting myself into. And so I don't know that I would have been able just to relax and enjoy my summer and just, table that for August, right?
You found the right profession. Be able to relax, wanting certainty.
Yeah, relaxing is not a strong suit for me.
We could start our own 12-step program.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I tried to do was read more, not necessarily legal things, but just get accustomed to reading large volumes of material, in one sitting, because that is a lot of what law school is. And I'd gotten out of the habit. I was a very big reader for a long time. Grew up without a television, so it really was the only thing I could do to entertain myself when I was growing up, other than play outside and read books is basically all I did. So yeah, that's pretty much all I did to prepare.
Did it help?
I think it did. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, and at least in terms of I was less nervous going into it. I mean, it had been 15 years, 20 years since I'd been in school, so I was a little anxious about going back again. I mean, I've always loved school, but it had been a minute. So,
Nathan, what was it like for you?
Well, I went directly from college to law school. I don't know about you, Sharif.
I did too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I likewise was nervous and felt underprepared. And I think most people probably do, because it's a new experience and you don't quite know what it's going to mean. At least most people don't before they go. I think in my class at UVA, about half of the students went straight through, and about half had some work experience where they had done something else and then gone back to graduate school. I felt like, at least in the first year especially, that those students had an advantage, it seemed to me, because for me, coming straight from undergraduate school to the University of Virginia for law school was a big leap in terms of expectations and study habits and what was going to be required of me. Whereas the people who had worked real jobs out in the real world with real stakes and a salary and supporting themselves and their families and had real responsibilities, it seemed like, to me, for those students, going back to law school, though it may have had its challenges, was more of a not a vacation, but it seemed easy compared to working a 9 to 5. And, I don't know if you felt like once you got there, your prior experience was an advantage or not over your classmates who went straight through. But it seemed like to me that it was for those who did have the work experience.
I think it's a huge advantage. I mean, I've heard so many times, oh, law school's so hard. It's so hard. It's not nearly as hard as parenting. And it's not, the stakes aren't as high, right? And because there are some wonderful moments of parenting, but it's taxing. It's 24/7. And, especially when you've got little ones and they get sick.
Nathan's
and then,
got a little one too.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's hard work, and it's relentless. You can't take a break from that, but you can take a break from law school,
Right.
You just put your books down, and maybe you're not so well prepared for the following day, but, you can't put your kids away, so I would say.
Well, you can.
Maybe
I
not
think it's
encouraged,
advised.
I have. Are you familiar with the case that I had not long ago?
Oh, no.
A little bit, yeah.
I think I might behave.
Criminal case, right?
It was a criminal case, and it involved children, and it involved allegations of a cage. So,
Oh, no.
Anyways,
I'm sorry I brought that up.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
But to be, I mean,
And even with work too,
Right.
As a nurse, I was working 12-hour shifts. I felt that was way harder
Right.
than law school. I think law school it's a lot of work for sure. It's a lot of reading, and you can't. I wouldn't call it a vacation necessarily, but it's not what I would describe as hard.
It's not what everyone says it is.
No,
Right? Because
no.
what do people think of? They think of, what's that movie? It's like Paper Chase.
Paper Chase.
Right.
Yeah, actually,
It's the classic.
I'll come clean. I don't think I've ever actually seen it.
I watched it right before I went to law school, and I was so excited.
My version of Paper Chase was Legally Blonde. That was,
There you go.
Legally Blonde's a good movie. Legally Blonde 2 is all right too. So, but it's not. I went straight through. I thought I struggled to some extent, at least at first, with the adjustment, especially coming from VMI going to UVA, where it seemed like half in my class went to Princeton, right? Like it was like, holy crap! Like how am I even going to keep up here?
Right.
Do I even belong here? Like, and I don't think until I got my grades, which were, I'm sure, I think were just okay. Like I even wondered like if I'd made a mistake. Right. And so law, but I agree with both you that my classmates who had another career or even just spent a few years in the working world before law school, just such better students.
Yeah, 100%.
They were more intentional.
Yeah.
Yes.
We have a number of paralegals that work here at the firm with us who have or may have aspirations to go to law school and have talked to me about it. I'm sure they've talked to Sharif about it. And the thing I tell them is that by working here, you're going to have such a leg up over
100%.
people who have no legal experience or no work experience. And because they're eager and ambitious and they want to do well, they ask the same question that Sharif asked you about, what should I do to prepare? And the thing I tell them is just keep doing what you're doing. Like that's the best preparation is just do well now in what you're doing. And then when you get there, you're going to be head and shoulders in front.
There's so much I wish I knew before starting law school. Now that said, I mean, like I'm grateful for everything looking back. And I mean this genuinely, like I've had my ups and downs like all of us, and I'm sure they'll continue. And I'm grateful for it, right? Because I don't think I'd be here in this chair doing what I'm doing if not for both the good and I guess the perceived bad at the time. But Nathan and I both, and I'm guessing you as well, Portia, it's not like we came from a long lineage of lawyers.
No.
Right? And so one of my classmates who, great guy, hard worker, great, but his godfather was Scalia.
Oh,
right?
wow.
So like, I mean, like, again, great guy, hard worker, but the resources available just in terms of the knowledge of like, well, like people are like, oh, you got to do this thing called a clerkship. Like, what the hell is a clerkship?
Yeah,
I don't even know what that is.
talked about that at the dinner table.
Right, exactly.
I'm not sure I knew what a tort was until the final exam.
Yeah, but you know what the irony about all of this is? If you play law school right, you get to win this special prize. It's called going to big law. And then you go to big law and you realize that's not a cool
So what
prize.
you're saying is we really won out by not being at the top of the class.
Correct. We didn't know it. Well, I still was dumb enough and I still did it. But whatever. At some point, and I didn't last very long. But there really can be an advantage towards taking time. And I don't want some people say take time off. I mean, you're still working. Like you still just go being a normal person. I'm sure people gave me that advice back then, and and I know I didn't listen to it because I didn't. And I'm sure I've given that advice to other people. And if I were to go back and talk to myself, I'd say the same thing, knowing how stubborn I was then and remain to be today. I probably still wouldn't listen to myself. But I tell people often now, unless it's like this is your life goal and you're never going to be happy doing anything else. If you've got any interest in doing something else, and I get these questions a lot in the context of the military because I went to VMI and a lot of cadets there are like, oh, I want to go be an Army JAG or Navy JAG or whatever, right? And but they've also got this like inkling, oh, I want to kind of do the cool guy stuff too. Like I want to be the infantry officer, I want to ride in a tank and all that. And it's like, and I tell them, just go do that. Because I mean, you do that for 3-4 years and then you go to law school. Right? And they're like, well, am I going to be behind? I'm like, no, you're not going to be behind. In fact, you're going to be further ahead because when you get on the other side of law school and people are looking to hire you and they have to decide between this person went to this law school, went to undergrad law school, and 15 other people did the same thing. You were a freaking officer in the military. I want you, right?
Yes.
Because the skills that we develop in other parts of life can be directly applicable to what we do as lawyers, which is why, again, Portia, I think you have a huge advantage going into what you're doing, because when you are representing your clients, you're going to they're going to get one immediately that you know what they're talking about because you've been there, right? Yeah. And there's also just a technical skill set. I remember you and I were talking at one point. You had mentioned during one of your summer internships about how when medical records come in, you were able to find stuff that other people just would never see, and not because of nothing to do with their competence, but just because they've never experienced it. They just don't know what to look for, right? And so anyway, so that's, I guess all three of us are saying that don't rush into law school, right?
Yeah.
Like you can be a lawyer when you're 75, right?
Yeah.
You can't be if you can't, I don't know, go guide bicycle tours in Barcelona when you're 75.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my advice, one, if you don't know what you want to do, and you want to take a year off, go travel, go see the world. Because once you start working in law, you kind of have to be where you're at.
Yeah.
You have to practice where your feet are to a certain extent most times. And secondly, if you just take a step back, right? Like the law, even though it's its own industry and its own profession, it touches on every other profession, right? It's kind of this overarching blanket over the rest of society to a certain extent. And the reason I didn't know what a tort was when I got to law school is because I'd never encountered one before. I hadn't worked in healthcare.
What a tort is.
I hadn't,
that
worked
thing-
in insurance. Right? But if you're out in the world and you have experiences, then when you show up and you start learning about the law and how it governs the field that you have experience in, it all it gives you something to grab onto and to make sense. And so I agree 100% with Sharif.
Yeah, me too. I would even say that even if you know that that you want to be an attorney and this is a lifelong goal, it's not going to be detrimental to you to still take time off and to still go work and do something else, or even just be a paralegal for a little while and just get your feet wet and get some experience, because all of that is just going to help, I think, make law school a little easier. But then also when it comes to getting a job, you have something that sets you apart from everybody else that just went K through JD. And, maybe they've had some interesting experiences along the way, but they haven't had a year or 2 or 5 or 10 of some other experience that, like you said, now you have a depth of knowledge that you can't get except for to grow up and spend that time just living your life.
Yeah. I mean, there's something, it's funny at VMI, like we didn't have to do our laundry, didn't have to cook. And so I remember law school, me and my roommate was also a VMI guy. And we had a 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment. And for the longest time, I'm talking like 6-7 months, we had nothing in the living room. We didn't even know what to put in there. Like, because at VMI, like you share a room with like 4 or 5 people. Like, anyways. So there's something about like just growing. I mean, I'm still growing up or trying to grow up, but there's something about like just go pretend to be an adult for a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think that can really help. So okay. So preparing for law school helped you. I don't know what, if anything, I did preparing for law school. I'm sure I read some stuff. I remember there was a book it was called like Getting to Maybe or something like that. Does that ring a bell?
Oh, yes, it does.
But in terms of actually going through law school, what are some of the things that you wish you could go back and tell your 1L self, hey, you should do this or avoid that? What are kind of some of the things that you'd want others to know?
So I think one of the things that was easier for me was to just follow my own path and make my own way, make my own contacts, which they do stress that in law school, this networking, right? And they set up all these events for students to do. But I did more of that on my own. I met you. I reached out to law firms that I felt that I might want to work for in advance of when we were, supposed to do those things. And then I just basically disregarded all the advice that didn't apply to me. I didn't want to do a clerkship. That wasn't, and I would talk to people, at law firms where I wanted to work, and I would say, how important is this? Like, if this is what I want to do, then, what do you, like, does it matter if I'm part of a journal? Does it matter if I do this clerkship? Do these things matter? Because I don't really want to do them. I would rather spend time with my grandchildren. But, and so I just didn't, so I felt that there was a lot of pressure in school to do all of those things, but it wasn't necessary for me and the job and the life that I wanted both during law school and in the future. So I would say to students now who are going through law school or thinking about it, really, really consider that, because there's a lot of work to be done. And then when you add a journal, that's even more. And then you add on. If you do a clerkship, then you have to find something else for your 2L summer, because that's your 1L summer. And so I found a job that I wanted. I did that job my 1L summer, my 2L summer, and now I'll be working there when I graduate. So I did not have to.
Are you talking about gray, broad, and injury law?
Exactly. But I didn't have to send out 50 applications, right? So I have, these poor people are studying for all of their classes and doing all this work and writing all these papers and then simultaneously applying to 50 different positions, probably most of them they don't even want. And I'm just thinking, what a colossal waste of time. Like, if you can just fine tune it and figure out which is the benefit of taking some time off and doing some other work or something, then you can really hone in on what you want to do and just get rid of all the superfluous stuff. So, and, for some people, the clerkship is important and being part of a journal is important, and that's part of their trajectory. But I just feel like there could be more intention behind that, which is easier for me coming at this, as a second, third, fourth career. I'm not even sure where I am right now.
It's funny you mentioned the journal thing. I remember in law school kind of the push, like, oh, it's time to get on a journal, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And looking back, and I ended up getting on a journal. I think I was on the criminal law journal at UVA. Long story short, they're not worthless, but they're close to it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, law school.
No comment.
Yeah, they're close to it. I mean, what is it? It's blue booking for other professors who want to get their stuff published. That's what it is. If I see a resume that comes through on my desk about a potential hire and it says journal, I think neither a positive thing nor do I think a negative thing. If I don't see a journal, I don't even miss it, right? Because it doesn't make, at least for the type of work that we do, it doesn't make a difference. Now, granted, law review is a different thing. That's for the smart people, the smart driven people. But law, that's in and of itself, it's a sign of accomplishment. And really, and frankly, the actual job on law review is the same, just at a higher level. But yeah, so that's really good to get that point of feedback about just being intentional about how you want to spend your time and energy. What was that like for you, Nathan?
Well, I think I was a little more aimless going in than you were. I didn't know what I wanted life to look like on the other side of law school when I showed up. And luckily, more through chance than intention, I was exposed to criminal law and trial work and kind of find my way into that track. And that's what I ended up doing for the first 10 years of my career before I ended up here. And, for those of you out there listening who may not know exactly what type of law you want to practice, I think it's fine to go to law school under that circumstance, but you need to know that you have to be intentional once you're there about seeking out opportunities to do different things and maybe have some ideas of things you might want to do, for one thing. But to follow up on your earlier answer, Portia, here's the thing I'm curious about. I want to ask you. I certainly know that for me, and I imagine Sharif would say the same thing, that the way that we thought about issues and problems changed when you finish law. By the time you finish law school, it has changed you as a person from before you walk through the door. And that is true for people who go straight through from college or people who have working experience. It's true for everybody that goes through that process. There's just something about it, about teaching you how to think, quote unquote, like a lawyer. And I'm curious for you, what, if anything, has changed in your outlook on the world now that you're getting ready to graduate law school?
Well, you lose all morality.
Well, that's, yeah.
And like
you can answer any side of anything, right?
You still have a heart.
Exactly.
You lose your heart at graduation too.
Oh no!
Yeah, I'm still looking for mine.
Is that part of the ceremony?
It's part of the ceremony.
I do remember there was a professor at UVA that I was particularly close to at the time I was there, and I was getting ready to graduate, and I kind of asked him for some advice, and he said that he had another student who graduated the year prior who came in and was very idealistic about all these different things. And at graduation, he asked him, so what did you learn? And he basically said, yeah, I don't know, what I believe anymore.
Yeah.
And meaning like I can argue either side of anything kind of thing. And that, there is something to that. I think you got to be careful to like maintain your sense of right and wrong and self when you go through the process.
Yeah.
But it does teach you a lot of skills for sure.
It does. Yeah. To follow up on that point, I think, from coming from it at, my age, I was 50 when I started law school. I think I had a much better sense of self. And so when I think I've become better at evaluating both sides, but I haven't changed how I feel about things, and my moral compass hasn't changed. But I think what it's helped me do is better understand the other side, and then like figure out how to make points that might make sense to the other side of, whatever the argument might be. Whereas before, I just would have been very dismissive and just said, well, you're wrong, obviously. And so now I'm able to consider it. I still think it's wrong, but I'm a little bit, I hope I'm a little bit better at least, being able to have a conversation and maybe, articulate some things that might be helpful for them to see my side of things. So
it does seem to me that maybe the flip side of being able to argue any side of any issue is that at least when you're doing that, you're forced to confront the arguments of the other side. And
right.
It seems like every day that goes by, the rest of the world, like we're all just talking past one another more and more and more and more. And that's part of what I actually enjoy about the practice of law is that, when we make an argument, the other side has to confront our argument on the merits. And when they make an argument, we have to confront it on the merits, and then somebody decides who wins.
Yeah.
And that sense of fair play as a starting point appeals to me.
Yes.
Well, it's only
100%.
fair if they choose us as the winners. Right?
It's not as black and white as I was expecting the law to be. There's a whole lot of gray, and just
no pun intended.
Right, exactly. The thing I think that I've enjoyed the most about law school, and the skill that I think is most valuable, is just reading more carefully and really understanding. So one of my classes, we have to go through the statutes and read them out loud with all of the punctuation, and then we break it down and really analyze, what does this mean, like every single part of it. All the
you
words,
realize how hard it is to write something that's clear.
Exactly,
right?
Exactly. Yeah, because, I send off an email and I think, oh, that makes perfect sense. And then the other person's, what are you talking about?
Well, ironically, we had a firm training yesterday on effective communication, which was fun. But I was the one who did it. So whether it was effective or not, the jury is still out on that. But ironically, a good example of that is we had a trial not long ago, and Nathan handled a motion that really, at its core, eventually came down to, how does one interpret an apostrophe in a complaint, which is kind of crazy. Mm-hmm. But it actually is kind of, statutory construction, as nerdy as that sounds, is actually kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of, I don't know, I think it's interesting. And it's certainly, I don't know, I tend to subscribe more to the textless type approach when it comes to viewing the law, right? And I recognize that's one way to look at the law. I mean, I think that's the fairest. It's at least from my understanding. But the law can be super, super interesting. Let's talk about something more practical in terms of or what did you find to be most effective in going about attending your classes and studying, right? And I'll give you a snippet of kind of at least what I came to learn the hard way. Outlines are a big thing in law school. People are like, oh, you got to get the good outline, or you got to come up with your own outline, or da-da-da-da, or buy that, or get it from this law review person who was a genius, and that's the best outline. And what I ultimately learned is that an outline, the benefits of coming up with an outline is not the finished product. The benefit of the outline is the process and the time and the care in which you take to actually put it together, because that's where the learning happens.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of professors, at least where we went to school, were perfectly fine with you being able to have access to your outline during the final exam. But I learned, and I'm sure I learn this the hard way, that having a great outline is only so helpful. And frankly, doesn't really help you that much.
No.
The benefit of it is the work that you do to create your own, because that's where the learning happens. So if I were to go back and talk to my 1L self and tell them what to do, granted, I probably still wouldn't have listened. I would have said, hey, find a regimented way to take the course material. Well, one, I would say, first off, don't just rely on the textbook. Textbooks, they're okay. Go to YouTube. Before you have this assignment, you name your topic. Go to YouTube, go online, find a video. Just get a general understanding of like, what is this about, right? So you have some context. Then dig into a horn book or the actual material or case material. Then be prepared for class. And I would say that to myself many times. Be prepared for class. Again, I'm not sure if I would actually listen to myself. And then when you're in class, don't be on the computer. Don't get distracted by your buddy. Thank you, Cam, who was on ESPN for most of the class. And actually like take the notes. And then after class, take your notes, take everything you read, preparing for class and the stuff that you watch, and then put all that into your outline. And then as you go through the semester, continue to build and build. And then when you get towards the final exam, at that point, that's when you cut. That's when you go through all the material and you cut to where you get a very concise outline that you can quickly refer to if needed. That's what I would tell someone to take. But that was also a number of years ago now. I mean, I graduated in 2014. I'm not good at math, but what is that, 12 years ago? And is there anything like that you think you've learned that would be valuable to a law student today?
So the last time I was in school before this, as I said, was 15, 20 years ago. So we were still using the pen and paper method. And I find that to be...
What is that?
It's, from the dinosaur age.
Understood.
Yes.
Okay.
So
pen and paper.
Ballpoint, not like calligraphy.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So I did exclusively my 1L, well, the first semester, 1L. I did all of my notes, paper and pen. And I did my outlines online. Then I printed them all out so that I could use them during the exam. It was not helpful. So then 2L, I changed my tactics a little bit, and I still continued to do the pen and paper note take, and I still do to this day, just because I feel it helps me retain the information better. And then it also forces me to take all of those notes and type them into the computer. So, and I can also edit as I'm doing that. So I would take all of my notes. I try to do it daily. It doesn't always work out that way, but at least once a week, go through all of my notes and put them in the computer, and then I get rid of all that paper. And so it's already an edited version of what I took and the outline of the outline, if you will. And then, as you said, I would go back and just cut out redundancies, organize it. I usually use the syllabus from the instructor as my starting point. So I'll download that as a Word document and then put my notes in underneath, the topic for the day, so that it's somewhat organized as I go along, and then just continue to edit and use that to study.
It's funny how we tend to figure it out as we come close to graduation.
Yeah, that was certainly true for me. I mean, I think grades are like anything, an approximation of what you actually learn, but they probably mattered to some degree. And for me, like every semester, I think was better than the one before, just because I felt like I got better at becoming a law student and learning what the expectations were. I think what you both described is very similar to the process that maybe not the pen to paper part, but similar to the process.
Yeah. I'm the only one in class that's doing that.
Right. I mean, I think
I actually did pen to paper because I found if I had a computer, I'd get distracted.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Well, that was another problem too, or, little messages pop up or whatever. And I usually sit in the back of the class, and so I can see what everybody else is doing. And there's a lot of New York Times puzzles going on and online shopping. There's a lot of not paying attention, which is totally what I would do if I, had my computer.
At the end of the day, that process is sort of learning how you learn best.
Yeah.
And that is something that has applied outside of law school for me, that I really learned in law school. I mean, I didn't come to that through undergrad or high school or anything before that point in my life. The other thing I wish somebody had told me before going to law school that would be practical advice I would give somebody is about the exams. Because up to that point in my life, for the most part, every exam I had been given, more or less, there's a right answer and there's a wrong answer, and they're looking to see if you know the right answer. And nobody really told me that wasn't the case in law school, and that they want to like see your work. They want to see you think on the page.
Yes.
And you certainly got to know some material to work with, but it's more about like how you take that material and use it. And once that clicked into place, everything turned around for me.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I know that both of you know what I'm talking about. Maybe somebody who hasn't been to law school they might kind of get it generally, but not in the same way you all do. But I think that's one of the things that when you go to law school and you come out the other side, like you get that process and what people look for.
Mm-hmm.
A couple other things just came to mind that I certainly would want to mention, or I would certainly want to know if I was getting ready to go to law school or 1L, is some things that I learned the hard way. I found that group study was ineffective. I found that group study was really a cop-out to try and get away without doing the work. And really the way to learn is to actually have to wrestle with it. And so my recommendation is, with rare exception, do group study. I tried that a couple times, and I never found it to be very helpful. Another thing that I would certainly, I don't think I did a good job of it, and I strongly wish I had. If there's anything that I wish I had done differently, it would have been this: is don't be afraid to develop relationships with your teachers, professional relationships.
Good clarification.
Thanks. But meaning take advantage of office hours. They want to see you, right?
Yeah.
They want to help. That's what they're there for, right? And one, you develop a better connection with your teacher. You're going to be more invested in the material. The teacher's going to be more invested in you when you do have those things you're not getting. I mean, that's your opportunity to go ask them, right? And that's their job. And also, it's funny. I remember I had my contracts professor, and it's kind of crazy how much this stood out to me. Because when I at the beginning of this podcast, when we talked about law school and all that, I meant it when I said that it was intimidating being a 1L at UVA Law School, where my classmates went to Princeton and Harvard, you name it, right? Just brilliant. And with the lack of grades, right? I mean, you don't know how you're doing until January when you get your final exams back, right? And even then, it's only somewhat indicative of actually how you're doing as a law student. But I remember my contracts professor looking at me and randomly and said, "Keep up the good work," right? And like I didn't get the comment on. I only got it once, and I still remember it. And I think the reason why I still remember it is because it was just the context of how difficult I thought it was. And for that professor to be willing to say that meant a lot to me. And hence, fast forward, 15 years, and I still remember what Professor Choi said. I remember his name, which is kind of crazy. Had I taken the time and been intentional about developing those relationships, professional, with the professors, I'd like to think that I would have just felt more comfortable, and it would have made for a more enjoyable experience. So those are a couple things I think I would want to tell myself. And the last thing that I think you commented on before we started this podcast is also this sense of you don't have to fit the norm of what people expect a law student to be. And what is that? We expect them to be stressed, not sleeping, working like crazy, forgetting life, forgetting family, forgetting friends. You just don't have to do that. In fact, it's actually not productive.
No.
Can you talk about that?
Absolutely. Yeah. I hear this a lot where, students will say, "Oh, I didn't have time to exercise, or I haven't had time in months, or I haven't, done X, Y, and Z." And there's, certainly a lot of pizza being eaten at the law school. That's the free lunch program, I guess. But yeah, I really, as a nurse and also, a fitness instructor for a long time, and just generally, my whole life I've been interested in health and wellness. I don't sacrifice that. So I did make sure that I, kept up with my runs and would go to the gym, and I'd take my ballet class that I love. And, I made sure to eat really well and skip the free pizza and pack my own lunch on those days. And I feel that investing in that gives you much more stamina to get through law school. Sleep is another thing that's hugely important. You're not going to remember anything if you stay up until 3 a.m., 4 a.m. cramming for an exam. You're way better off to just go to bed at 10 and maybe get up a little bit earlier, review your notes, and then go take your exam. But it's so, so important to take care of yourself, because if you don't have your health, you're you're not going to perform as well, and that's going to impact your longevity, and then it impacts your relationships. It's not worth the sacrifice in my mind.
And then you've got COVID in a nursing home.
Exactly.
It all comes full circle. Portia, this has been a lot of fun. Before we let you go, if you could go back in time and to when you first entered the professional world and give yourself some advice, knowing everything that you know now, what would you tell yourself?
Well, that's a little complicated, because when I first entered my job, when I was a nurse and I graduated from nursing school, I was a mom. I was a young mom. So, and that was it was compatible with being a mom, because I could choose my shifts. I could, drop Sarah off at school and then go and work and then pick her up. I was somewhat lucky, but also I negotiated that with the department where I worked. But I would say that I would tell my younger self just to enjoy those moments and don't be so gung-ho on, my career and getting ahead in life and just be constantly feeling like I have to, keep striving and doing all these things. Like, I think that it's okay to just slow down and be a mom and be a wife and, do those things. And a career, like, I started law school when I was 50. It's always going to be there, but your kids aren't always going to be little, and you're not going to get those times back. Thankfully, I didn't miss out on too much because I was a nurse, and that's very compatible with being a mom. But yeah, I would just say, slow down and just enjoy your life, enjoy where you are right now. And, there's always opportunity later to go back to school and go back to work.
Can I ask you one follow-up question?
Yeah,
I know Sharif likes to end on that question, but I think this is apt particularly for you and given everything we've talked about. Mm-hmm. So you mentioned before the podcast that you had thought about law school for a long time.
Yes.
You've raised a child.
Yep.
You've been a nurse. Mm-hmm. You've run a gym. Now you've gone to law school.
Yep.
And you're about to graduate. And you're going to enter this new profession. And clearly something that you're excited about.
Yes,
and you
very
want to do.
Excited. Yeah.
And we wish you the best of luck. But my question is, what most excites you about your future as a lawyer?
I absolutely love what I do now. It's something that I get lost in. I mean, I'll start working on a project and look up and it's 7 p.m. and I'm still crank, and I just find it so interesting. It's like a gigantic puzzle that needs to be solved, and I'm learning so much, and it's just it's a fun thing to do. So, yeah.
Well, welcome to the profession.
Thank you.
We wish you the best
Thank
of luck.
you.
And welcome to Gray Broughton Injury Law. So
Thanks,
should we edit that part out so your soon-to-be employer doesn't listen to that?
I think they can take a joke.
I think they're very lucky. So it's been a privilege. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Courtroom Stories and Tactics by RVA Trial Lawyers. Hosted by Sharif Gray and Niall Abuzaki. Please subscribe and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or any major podcast platform. Together, we're building a tribe of trial lawyers to remind the world what human life is truly worth, one verdict at a time.